We're back with another exciting episode of
That's
Energy.
so boring.
Bites.
That's a boring superlative, John. We're always trying to find good superlatives.
I'm an engineer, man. I'm not good with the English language. It's just.
I mean, last time I said kick ass. So I mean, that's kind of crude.
That's a better superlative than what I was able to pull out.
But yeah, no, I think speak for both of us. We're really excited to have Rudy Lacovara here, the founder and CEO and janitor and developer of PetroBricks.
A lot of hats, man.
Yeah.
A lot of hats. Thank you. Thank you.
But I was glad when I heard you're coming into town. I've been wanting to get you on here for a while, and it's always better to do it in person than it is, over the Zoom camera. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both. I'm glad we can make it work.
Yeah, and Rudy's down for Houston Energy and Climate Week.
Yeah, I think Jacob ran into you on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever, and then I ran into you yesterday. And so it's been good. It's nice to sit down and have some time with you.
Yeah, the whole week, it's funny compared to Colorado, where I'm from, based in Denver. And there is so much more going on down here, especially around oil and gas, but even just the, kind of the startup scene and the tech scene. You got a lot going on.
No, it's pretty cool. I mean, a month or two ago, I was walking around the Cannon. I was like, man, I need to do this every week. Yeah. Like just the people I was bumping into and just the stuff that was going on. And I didn't engage that much, but it was just like.
No, it's very true. If you just going to the Cannon or the Ion and just like walking around and seeing it's just very energizing. I had a lunch meeting at the Ion with Forsberg and Nancy earlier this week, and I was just like, oh, this is cool. It's like I hadn't been to the Ion since they built it, and so
I need to get over there too.
Empty the last time I was there, basically. But
the Ion's fantastic, and I might be wrong about this, but I thought I heard some people saying that they're going to expand that area and they're building like a whole innovation district. Have you heard about something like that?
So Houston's trying to do that. Well, and like you had, it started with that stuff, and then now you've got all the tech companies throwing money at data centers and different things that they're going to build in Houston. And so it's like, it's nice that you're getting not just energy tech, but
yeah. Well, I think even like with medical tech, I know because I think A&M and Methodist partnered up on like a medical technology, you get your MD, but it's like a medical engineering or something like that too recently. So I think a lot of cool stuff gonna be happening here for sure.
I'm glad because Houston has needed it for a very long time, I feel like. So
yeah, I mean, I think it'll differentiate us with Austin even and all this stuff too, where I think people are starting to come around a little bit. But now if someone figures out how to remove the humidity, they'll have it solved.
Yeah, humidity and traffic and would be golden. Maybe the carbon capture guys can figure out the humidity problem too. While they're sucking all the air out of the.
But we got to stop producing all the carbon dioxide in the air too. But well, awesome. So Rudy, you're here with PetroBricks. What the heck is PetroBricks? And
so PetroBricks, it's data connectivity software for oil and gas, and it's basically a solution for that problem you run into a lot of times where you got 20 different systems that everything needs to work together for, let's say, a production engineer to do their daily operations. And so PetroBricks is kind of the connector that has pre-built components that talks to all those different systems, and then you can create data pipelines by just kind of snapping those things together.
So it's kind of like a Fivetran or Zapier make for energy. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, it's funny. So that's right. You've heard. You're one of the only people that I talk to who's heard of Zapier. Is it Zapier? Zapier?
I have no idea. It's one of those.
But crazy enough, that was like the original vision was. I kept having, I was thinking about like the next kind of sensor data play that I wanted to build something around. I'm like, yeah, there's all this important stuff going on with Sparkplug B and MQTT, and then I figured out data structures and architectures that I thought would be kind of a generalized data pipeline solution. And I kept running into trying to talk to people. I kept trying to explain to, operators, service companies, folks like that, what I had in mind. And the response I'd always get is something along the lines of, I don't know what you just said, and I really don't care. But I tell you what I do care about. I've got these two systems out here, and I need to pull data from them twice a day, and I need to put it in my back-end system. And I also need to, convert the data to my common data format that I use in my back-end system. Can you write me custom software to do that? And I would always tell them, no, you don't want me to do that. That's the worst way to solve that problem.
Right.
And after about the third time that happened, I finally, got a clue. And probably more importantly, I looked at it from their perspective. I'm like, well, what's a good solution? It's all well and good to tell them, no, I'm not going to do that. That's a bad way to solve that problem. But yeah, what would be the good solution? And I realized that there really wasn't a very good solution. Yeah. And we probably needed a Zapier for oil and gas where, instead of talking to social networks and Twitter and Slack, you talk to Embase and PyHistorian and all the, the systems that oil and gas companies care about.
Yeah. So for those, I guess, who don't know, Zapier or Make are these kind of low-code platforms that have kind of blown up over the last, 5 years or so, where they have a bunch of, it's basically managed, it's APIs as a service in the simplest form. So they manage the APIs from all these different softwares and platforms, and then you come in, you connect to your platform, however you do it, and then you can start doing things with the data from that. So you can pull it and then transform it and then push it somewhere else. You can write it to somewhere else. You can do all kinds of stuff with it, but we use it all the time for a lot of our marketing and backend stuff. And so it's incredibly valuable. For the longest time, I tried to avoid using it just out of principle because I'm like, I know I can write this API, but then as I got more mature, I was like, I know I can write it, but I'm not going to maintain and manage it. So it's worth paying the money to just let them do it. Especially when you get enough of those, lined up, you're like, I could have a whole person just managing APIs all day long. And so I think it's an incredibly needed thing in our industry. So I'm really glad you are building it.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about because again, you brought up the Fivetran part too. And I think it's kind of it's a very extensible platform, right? Or like the concept. So, there's a lot of different use cases here. I can think of, all right, we can just extract and load data, say from all your different sources into your centralized Snowflake, SQL Server, Databricks, whatever, right? You can do that, which people were doing before with scripts or other services, right? And then you could do your stuff there, but you could also push it from those sources back out to other sources, right? After it goes through the sausage machine, or I think PetroBricks can be the sausage machine as well, right? Like it can pull from one API, do some things to it, and then put it into, it can get from one and post to another, those kind of things, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. I think of it as a data automation platform. And, the idea is that it's doing all the Zapier stuff, but it's also connecting to things that we care about in the oil field and maybe you don't run into if you're doing marketing.
Yeah, it's the biggest downside of Make and Zapier is it's like if you want to interact with any actual industry tools, you just better hope they've got a database connection on the back end. Otherwise, you're not getting in.
Yeah, so like PetroBricks, we'll have automations where they can start off by doing the API connection thing where you're connecting to some system to their public JSON API, or it could be MQTT, or it could be it can be a SQL query against a SQL database. It can be an FTP server, like we run into SFTP and FTP quite a bit still.
No way, not in this industry.
Hey,
sorry.
I'm red pilled now. Unless a tool like this works really well against APIs, like start posting your shit on a CSV to an FTP all day over some of these awful APIs that companies have. So,
yeah, I've learned after being, when I was younger, I started off pretty critical of stuff that I thought was dumb. And over the years, I've learned that, there's actually a reason you're doing that. So
yeah,
I probably should have a little more humility when I'm talking about, hey, that makes no sense. Why are you still doing that? But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that you run into. And more to your point, Bobby, you started talking about more automation stuff. It's just as easy to push into an API as it is to pull from an API. And, it depends on the API on the receiver side has to be there. But if you've got, like an API to change a configuration on an ESP or something, PetroBricks can it's got a whole eventing system. You can inspect the data going through the pipeline. You can raise events based on, conditions that might happen in the data stream. You can then send out commands to an API or through MQTT. If you want to do Sparkplug B, that's another way you can send commands to external systems. So yeah, you have the ability, the first use case is always, let's consume data. Let's get all data exists in 20 different places. We need it in one place where we can look at it and kind of manage operations. So that's the first use case. But absolutely, the next step is going to be, let's start doing real automations.
Yeah. And let's talk about where does PetroBricks live? I mean, I think we're talking about Zapier. That's a SaaS. I log in and I can use my Google email with SSO and all these things. But like, as I understand it, PetroBricks can live in the cloud. You guys can host it. It can live within their firewall, or it can live on the edge, right?
Yeah, we're actually not hosting anything yet.
Okay.
I think that's going to happen as we go to smaller operators.
Sure.
We're going to run into folks who don't want to host their own PetroBricks node. But really, part of the key design is PetroBricks is meant to solve this problem for oil and gas. And I think that requires that you have to run on-prem, especially with security concerns.
Behind firewalls.
Yeah.
And
you can't be sending like all your sensor data, off to the cloud, or opening up a hole in your private, to your VPN hole to your private SCADA network. People are not going to do that.
No, they get the Purdue model going that, they're only going to push out. You can't.
I don't even think, with PetroBricks. So we got a lot of folks who are basically dropping a PetroBricks node on their private SCADA network. I think even that violates the Purdue model.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, it's exactly
it's within
that kind of thing.
it's acquiring data and then pushing out. As long as there's not like a external
Connection
one that's
in,
then I think
right.
But no one asked me. But
yeah, so yeah, to your point, yeah, I think it's really important for oil and gas that our customers are upstream operators. Yeah. So I think it's really important for those customers that they be able to run this type of data automation where they need it.
Sure.
And in some cases, you even have access to unprotected systems.
Yeah.
And, because they're on a private SCADA network that's never going to see the light, no one's ever going to see it. So yeah, being able to drop something with those data automation capabilities on a network like that just has access to everything it needs access to makes everything work much, much better.
Big time. Yeah.
No, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, because even then you're talking about, I guess all the protocols. Can you even talk almost directly to PLC level or Modbus type things as well? Or have you looked at that? Or
the answer, could we do that at some point? Yeah, that's the nice part of it, being custom software is you can build whatever you need, but we intentionally try not to
overstep on the SCADA.
We don't want to reinvent the wheel either.
Sure.
There's good solutions for that already. Yeah. Where we find the closest that we probably get to that is there's a lot of stuff going on with Sparkplug B these days. And so, yeah, we can definitely pull data from and push data to Sparkplug B.
Okay. Can you speak about Sparkplug B for people who may not be, or try to dumb it down as much as you can?
So,
or why it's better than what existed?
So, by the way, I have to put the qualifier in software guy. May say not a real oil and gas, may say something dumb. And I'm also not my expertise is not in operational technology. But yeah, Sparkplug B, with that said, Sparkplug B is basically a standard for both messages that you're going to send, the format of those messages, and the topic space, the namespace of the topics that you're going to publish to on an MQTT broker. And by doing that, the whole thing about MQTT is it's just a really basic pub sub. Yeah. So there's, that's great. But if you want to do like a SCADA system, you have to maintain state, you have to track devices and edge nodes as they come online and, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fun.
And so, yeah, Sparkplug B basically is this standard that just through being really smart about how they pick topics and really smart about the format of messages, it kind of allows you to provide that SCADA type functionality where you're doing all that extra stuff and you're maintaining state and you're tracking devices with just a simple pub sub.
That's pretty slick.
Nice.
What are the kind of most common integrations that you're seeing right now as far as like between what softwares or different tools and platforms?
So, we kind of have a boiling the ocean type problem where the platform can do anything, but to make it actually useful, you have to start somewhere. And so we've started with production engineers. And a lot of the initial use cases have been methane emissions data. So you got all these new companies like, they have a new IoT methane sensor platform like Kuva or Cube or EarthView. Yeah. And there's no wired SCADA connection. So how does an operator get that data into their historian? So that's a good entry point for PetroBricks, where we kind of have a turnkey solution for that.
That doesn't exist really.
Doesn't exist, or it requires it.
Right.
You know, really, it
Develop
requires.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so once the interesting thing is, once folks see how that works for something like methane emissions, they realize, oh wow, you know what? You know what's really important that this would do the same thing for is, can you get us compression data for gas lift?
Yep.
You know,
ESP is a big one too. I feel like everywhere I go, we were even doing it at RDS. Like, can you hook into my ESP and like stream that data? Like, because some of them have their, like, you've got 10 different vendors all with different APIs, and like, again, they just want it consolidated into one standard format. It's not what it's timestamp and
Yeah. No, I
pressure
mean, it's
voltage or whatever. Like,
it's the vein of our industry's existence, in all honesty, is having 20 different softwares with all the data that you need in them, but none of them talk to each other, or none of it's unified in a way that you can actually do something with it. And there's such such a need for it.
one thing I just thought of though too is like something like this, where say it can normalize multiple vendors that provide the same thing. It gives you a lot more, I would say, leverage on a supply chain side. Because I mean, I know some people, they've built, you know, and it's smart, say on the Liberty side or different folks, you know, where they've got, you know,
Their standard.
and like people get used to consuming it that way. And so then it's like, man, is it really worth us negotiating with, you know, Liberty and Halliburton and whomever else, like on the frac side? Because like, I know I want to get the data this way, and if I switch now, I got to rewire everything. But then you give up a ton of leverage on the pricing side.
Right.
yeah, Liberty's great about that. They have good standards.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
No, and we had Brian Weaver on probably about a year ago. Or
yeah. Unfortunately, not many people are very good with their data standards on the field services side, and that is a big problem, at least historically speaking. So but it's one of those things that it's like, it's solvable. These things are solvable, and I'm glad there are people like you that are working to help solve these problems.
So an interesting thing occurs to me. You're asking about use cases. Tell me if you've ever heard about these kind of problems. With gas lift in particular, there's kind of this I don't think this has been a problem in the past, where suddenly operators want data from surface compressors. But the problem is there's a SCADA connection to the surface compressor, but that's owned by the service company. And the service company wants to make the operator happy. So they'll make that data available, but they do it in a way where you need a programmer to get at it. It's, you know, Event Hub or JSON Web API, something like that. And so I don't know if this is because we're suddenly realizing we want that data, or what the situation is. But I've seen this coming up a lot, where operators, they're either trying to develop custom software to get at that and pull it from the service companies, or a lot of them will actually, they'll have an initiative to get a wired SCADA connection going to all their surface compressors. Is that something that we've seen that you've ever heard of in the past, where it's like, it's not even a new system.
Right. It's just somebody else's.
You suddenly realize, oh man, the service company actually owns that data, or they have the wired SCADA connection to that data, not us. And yeah, in order to get it, we're going to have to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I feel like that happens all the time.
I mean, I know there's a company, Detection Technologies, out there that is, that's their whole jam pretty much, is like the compressor side, but it's becoming a big deal. I mean, whether it's GME or different people I'm doing work for now, I mean, the compressor stuff is coming up a lot.
Well, yeah, if you can produce it, but you can't sell it and take it
But even
away.
optimizing the compressors and all that stuff too. Like, are they over capitalizing on electricity, or, there's a lot that goes into it. So,
man, it is fascinating to see how granular we've gotten with the efficiencies that we're trying to look at in the field. Never did I think they'd be like, oh yeah, the compression is where we need to start optimizing things. But
you start getting in like the LOE analysis.
Yeah, no, I mean,
you're spending a ton on that.
It makes sense. It's capital expense, right?
Yeah. And it's a lever on production. So that's nice.
Mm-hmm. How did you get the idea for PetroBricks? Or let's back up a little bit. How did you get into kind of tech and or energy, kind of going back? Were you always coding or taking stuff apart, or what? We've asked this question before, but like, what was kind of your gateway drug into coding or tech?
So I was a software guy, and I actually went to school for aerospace and physics, and those are two terrible degrees if you want to get a job.
You didn't want to go work for Lockheed somewhere?
I did want to go work for Lockheed, but it's interesting. The aerospace industry is kind of it's similar to like the frac service company side of the business. Well, it's whenever there's a cut in the commodity price, they may fire a whole bunch of people, and there's no jobs to be had for a few years, and that's what aerospace is like. With every new administration, if they cut NASA and they cut defense, forget it. That's no jobs.
That's very true.
So I caught the wrong side of that cycle and was working in grocery stores, and that's kind of what got me into tech. I'm like, being a programmer, that's probably better than stocking Coca-Cola on the shelves.
Yeah.
So I did that and was kind of a self-taught programmer. I did do some programming stuff in college, but I really didn't come out of school with those skills. And
what did you start when you started kind of getting into it? What were you programming in?
I think I was doing Pascal, Visual Basic, and Fortran.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going to guess Visual Basic
Everyone,
for sure, but
I feel like so many people have touched Visual Basic at some point in their lives. It's kind of amazing, actually.
Yep.
And then Fortran is hilariously common as well. Like people don't think that would be a common thing, but one of my professors, she worked at Lockheed. She was in the missile ballistics department, and I asked her one day, I was like, "What do y'all, code missiles with and stuff?" And she said Fortran, and this was in 2007. I was like, why? Like why? And she said, because that's what management knows. Like everyone reviewing the code and all the upper VPs and management, that's what they coded in. And so that's what they do.
We've talked about this before, but like even just the exposure or the risk of
right. Who knows Fortran?
Refactoring that code to another language is like,
that's whatever.
It's probably a security risk at that point.
Yes. And safety, right? You think about, I don't remember which NASA mission it was where they used metric instead of imperial and it blew it up.
That was when they sent like one of those things to Mars, wasn't it?
I don't remember which one, but it can't go.
Well, then you're not going to get much lower level than Fortran, I don't think.
No, well, that's what she said too, is like, if you can't do it in Fortran, it's not efficient enough. And I was like, that's actually smart. And also from just like the compute and hardware perspective, you don't want to spend a bunch of money on the electronics if they're going to, in a missile that is intended to blow up, right? Like you want the most basic lightweight thing you can have on there. But also even from a hacking perspective, it's like, there's not many people that even know Fortran to begin with. And so,
yeah. And there's also the when you're talking about the hacking perspective, there's the issue of package managers too. Mm-hmm. Like I always think about that for certain applications, like if you're going to build your missile defense system, do you really want to build it in Node or even C#, where you're basically pulling in how many different packages? Could be 100, could be 20.
Those are I'm sure at that level it has to be like local package managers with vetted packages. Like you can't just go to pip and pull down.
I would hope so.
Well, but but that was the whole thing too, wasn't it? I think it was when we were at RDS, like I think scikit-learn, they realized that there was like something incorrectly programmed like on the on some of the interpolation methods or whatever it was, and it basically invalidated a ton of scientific papers
that were
that they had to go back and like validate that those were still true, because like the way it was calculating something in scikit-learn was wrong
for years, right?
For years, yeah. So then people were using that package to do all their research and
the pros and cons of packages and third-party repositories.
Yeah, apply that to a missile. And, the cost of being wrong get a little higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big time.
Well, even like on the, talking about the OT space and the hardware side, right? Like that's the last job I had was an edge computing startup, and like every single chip had to be validated, and like they were all serialized, and like if that chip serial number didn't match the board, didn't match the CPU, didn't match the GPU, we couldn't use it because they were super worried about, whoever manufactured it originally might have put some malware on it, and then that ends up on a government application. There's all kinds of fascinating security just around the hardware going into that, no less.
It has to be.
Yeah, like it's pretty wild. But so you started in that, and then how did you turn that into actually being in software for most of your career?
I picked up software development and started working in the industry during the dot-com boom, did a couple of startups, and then came out the other side of that and I actually wound up at an event with a guy who's startup famous at the Air Force Academy. And oh my gosh, what is his name? Steve Blank, who does the he wrote like 4 Steps to the Epiphany, and he's, if you talk to like the dot-com boom Silicon Valley crowd, they all know Steve Blank. And anyway, he was talking at the Air Force Academy, and there were a bunch of us who went down there from the Denver startup community and listened. We had a roundtable discussion with him afterwards. And as often happens with startups, everybody started saying, well, I can't get any money. No one will invest in me. And so Steve Blank, being a very tactful man, instead of responding the way I would have, he said, well, part of the problem is you guys are trying to build a social networking startup in Denver, or you're trying to build like an advertising or a finance startup in Denver. And you really need to look at where you have an unfair advantage. And if I was in Denver, I would be building an oil and gas startup. And so I heard that and thought, that's a really good idea.
That's awesome. So that's pretty cool that was just like, you didn't have, any ties to the industry per se.
Mm-hmm. But because everything up to that point, no oil and gas experience previous to that, or there was?
No oil and gas experience previous to that, but I knew a guy named Josh Sherlick, and we'd kind of known each other off and on for years. And he was in that room too, and he heard the same thing. And a few months later, we actually, I think it was a few months, it might have been a little longer than that. But yeah, a little while later, we got together, and there was an event that was going to be energy focused. I think it was Jim Thorson's first, they called it Energy Tech Mashup or something like that. And, Josh and I got together and said, okay, I can do software development. Josh, you can do oil and gas. He was working for, I think, PDC at the time. And let's go. And I need you to talk. I don't talk oil and gas. I'm going to bring a couple of developers. Let's go talk to these oil and gas companies and start a company.
That's awesome.
And that became Well Data Labs, by the way.
No, I mean, and yeah, y'all they've been around for quite a while, have a great reputation. And we've worked with them extensively in the past at different companies and stuff. And so I love hearing the stories of like how people got into the space, because there is not, like, people think that it's like, oh, well, first you do this and then, you build up and then you move over here and then you start your own company. And it's like, most of the people we've had on do not have a linear path when they started to where they are now. And I think it's just comforting for most people to realize that most people don't have it figured out, and there isn't they might have a grand plan, but life never works out to be what you're thinking it's going to.
All right. So around whatever time that was that you got, exposed to oil and gas, let's say, what was like the most like shocking thing? You're like, holy cow, what's going on here? And then also, what was maybe like the most endearing thing, if you will, or one of your favorite things about oil and gas that maybe you had an experience in your career?
I don't know that anything was necessarily shocking. I would maybe say the most endearing and the most surprising thing was actually turned out to be the same thing, where I had worked in a lot of different industries. I'd done software in pay-per-click advertising, defense, homeland security, all kinds of stuff. Done stuff for the energy, the Department of Energy, not the energy industry.
Were you working? Did you do anything with NREL while you were?
No, Rocky Flats.
Okay.
Right. People who aren't, for anyone who's not aware, Rocky Flats is notorious for, they used to manufacture the plutonium triggers for nuclear warheads there. And they would take like the waste from the process, the radioactive waste. And Rockwell, I think, was the contractor at the time. And the FBI raided the place because they were like taking radioactive waste, sticking it in barrels and putting it out in a field with a tarp over it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can't do that?
Yeah. So that made Rocky Flats famous. That made Rocky Flats, a cleanup site for the next, I think it was 25 years before they finally got it cleaned up. But I was the part of DOE that was involved with the Rocky Flats cleanup is where I worked. But anyway, getting back to your question, I had worked with a bunch of different industries. And the only thing that I knew about energy and oil and gas was really, what you see in movies and, the common perception of the old boys club. And the only thing I knew about fracking was I didn't want it done in my backyard. And so when we started Well Data Labs, I really had to dig in and educate myself about the industry and about fracking in particular, since that's, what Well Data Labs was all about. And the surprising thing that I realized is, number one, fracking was not the boogeyman that I thought it was. And number two, which was really the most surprising and endearing thing, is that this industry is full of some of the smartest people with the most integrity of any industry that I've worked with. Because people are people. You run into good folks and bad folks in any industry. But oil and gas has a dramatically higher percentage of scientists and engineers whose beliefs are based on truth, who care about, people, who care about the environment. And that is not what you see when you do advertising.
No, not at all.
That's my favorite part is it's like, have you ever met a geologist? Like they love the environment, right?
Yeah.
Like we make jokes about them licking rocks because they like rocks so much. And it's like,
They really want to wear a Patagonia
right.
in a North Face. So.
Exactly. That's right up their alley. If they just didn't hate us so much. But what would you say? Because fracking data is something Bobby and I have both dealt with in the past, and I'm still dealing with it today, and it still drives me absolutely crazy. But what's one of the most shocking things for people who aren't familiar with frac data that you discovered as a kind of entrant into the frac side of things?
It's probably the channel mapping problem. I think is the biggest thing for everybody.
Yep.
By the way, I probably should have brought this up, off podcast, but if you guys ever want to talk, I got some ideas. I think Sparkplug B has kind of shown us the way of how we could actually solve that channel mapping problem. You get some folks from Lime and AMI in here and have an afternoon discussion. We might be able to figure that out.
Well, see, that to me is ultimately the problem, right? Is it's like if the manufacturers would have started at that, I mean, even most of them do now, where you can just have a template file and you just open that file and the naming convention is exactly the same, but none of them use it in the field. And so that's ultimately the problem to me, is that there are humans involved in the process. And because of that, there becomes variance in how they name things or what order they put things in and all of that fun stuff. And then that is
from one stage to the next.
Blows it up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They've got the template file, but number one, who has access to that template file? It's definitely not other systems. And then, like you pointed out, it changes because things happen during a frac job. What was your treating pressure on stage 2 is no longer your treating pressure on stage 4.
That's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, or just like, I mean, one of the most basic things that Bobby and I would push for at RDS was just like, pull in every channel. Don't try and just pick and choose which channels are active at the beginning of the stage, because by the end of the stage, you're probably going to have different channels active depending on how much chemical is left in one of your totes or whatever. And there's just so much there. And so just the way that people, were thinking, they weren't thinking of it from a data perspective when it happened. And that's ultimately, I think, one of the why we run into some of these issues in the oil and gas space, at least on the data side, is that it's like the software existed before anyone ever thought about using the data from the software. And then now it's like, oh, well, of course we're going to use the data from the software, but the software itself hasn't really changed that much in 20 plus years. And so it's like, it does more stuff, but the root of how you set up the job and all of that stuff never changed. And so we're just, it's basically tech debt
before 2010, probably like, what do I want?
No, I mean, absolutely. Like it made no sense. No one was asking me to stream the raw data anywhere in 2010 when I started working on frac jobs. No one gave a shit. Like I gave them the ASCII file at the end of the job, and that was it, in the PDF. There we go. And then 5 years later, everyone's like, oh no, we need like that data needs to be digital. We need to use it. And it's like, oh,
whatever happened to the Witzmol, frac Witzmol stuff.
Oh, it's still there. There's another iteration. Some guy was telling me about it a couple weeks ago.
It's probably only coming from Halliburton trucks.
I'm sure it's Halliburton only, or, 2 service companies that run the consortium. And yeah, we'll go on a whole diatribe about that, but
yeah, it's funny. the frac stuff is not really related to what I'm doing today in PetroBricks. I mean, it could. PetroBricks would be a great way to get data out of Well Data Labs or Corva and get it into Snowflake or something like that. But that's not what people are really using it for. It's all the production use cases. But with that said, spent a lot of time thinking about frac. And, you never stop thinking about that problem. And I'm not kidding. I think that what you said, where you were encouraging people to track every channel, I think that's it. Pull the 160 channels we've got, publish that to an MQTT broker. And then similar to the way that we layer state information for devices on, with Sparkplug, it's the channel mappings are just more state information.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things. If you have all the channels and then you see, whatever, your biocides start going down in the middle of it, and then on another channel that's not named, but it's mapped and it's there, you start seeing it come back up, and they happen to be in the same range that the channel that fell off was in. There's a very high correlation that was just a different tote of the same chemical. And so, but if you didn't have that channel because it wasn't originally mapped, then it just looks like it fell off and nothing happened. And so it's little stuff. And it's even annoying though that you'd have to do that, because then it's like, you still don't have the confidence in that data or that channel being the same data from the one that fell off. But generally speaking, it should be, right? Like you just have your domain expertise, and it's.
Well, if anyone from Lime or AMI is out there,
yeah,
call us up. Right around the corner.
Yeah, but that's the thing too, is like on top of that, then the service companies are all now trying to push out their own thing because they buy the equipment from the manufacturer, and then so it's just a mess.
We need some standards, and it seriously. I've been thinking about this for, I would say, a good 6 years now, maybe 7. And it occurred to me while I'm building this other stuff and seeing how other problems are solved. It's like, this is the solution right here. Like Sparkplug B isn't the answer, but it's basically MQTT for the base data and then state information using a Sparkplug B like standard would actually solve that problem. And suddenly everything in the field would be able to talk and share that channel mapping data.
Yeah. Even when we were at RDS, I pushed so hard for a couple different people, and even us. I was like, it doesn't have to be a format, but we can just publish a naming convention and just like, let's see if anybody decides to use it, piggyback off of it. We never did, but it's like, people get so hung up on, is it WITSML or is it XML or is it JSON or what? It's like, it doesn't fucking matter what structure it's in.
I can pull it and move
right.
it around.
Like I can do whatever I want with it once I get it. But if the naming conventions are different every single stage, then it doesn't matter what format it's in, because it's still junk, and it requires all this extra work where it's just like, hey, if it's FR, let's name it FR. Even though our proprietary chemical name is something else, we know that FR is FR. Like the chemical will be on the bomb. It'll be in the report. Like you don't need that type of level of detail. But just having a standard naming convention would literally solve this problem, I feel like, in the industry. But I have zero confidence that will ever happen.
For anyone out there who has not had the joy of dealing with Frac Data, it's hard.
Yeah, that's definitely non-trivial.
3-row headers are my favorite. Like we're doing a project right now
for those.
It's like chemical name, proprietary chemical name internally, the general name, FR, biocide, whatever, and then the units. And that's the header for each column for all the chemicals. And then on the next file for the exact same operator, same format and everything, there's only one header. And then on the next one, there's only 2. And it's like, or the headers run together. So when you do the extraction, it shifts the columns and screws up your entire data set. It's so, anyway, we'll get off of that. We've been on that for a minute. Yeah. What are some, these are one of the big things where we like to ask people, but what are some tools that you kind of use on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that, you find valuable, you find helpful, whether that's, libraries or softwares or anything like that?
Yeah. I'm boring. I do. I kind of take the party like it's 1999 approach to software development, where I'm using Visual Studio. I probably will switch over to Rider sometime soon for a development environment. And
what's Rider? I don't think I've heard of that one.
Oh, Rider's so Visual Studio used to be awesome, but man, it's They keep
You're talking about like old school Visual Studio, not VS Code.
Not VS Code, actual Visual Studio, like full on Visual Studio. They still make that. But they keep adding more and more stuff to it where now it crashes
it's very
on
heavy,
me.
right?
Yeah, it's very heavy. So Rider's a lighter weight version done by a company called JetBrains. They make great
JetBrains.
stuff.
Got it.
They make some good stuff. What was their
PyCharm.
Charm? Yeah, I
Yeah,
used to use
PyCharm.
PyCharm quite a bit.
Data Grip.
Yeah, DataGrip's a really good IDE for SQL stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, Data Grip, PyCharm, all the stuff that JetBrains makes is pretty great. So I do use JetBrains, but I use basically Visual Studio with the JetBrains ReSharper plugin. And a lot of, one of the things that I did intentionally was I wanted to reduce the number of external dependencies. So I minimized the number of libraries and, external, code that I might bring into PetroBricks, because the idea is to make it as secure as possible, but also as simple as possible. Because in other environments, I've done a lot of consulting around with different big distributed systems, and consistently you would see stuff where, we just pulled in the latest version of a package and now prod is broken.
Everything broke.
And the crazy thing is, a lot of times those errors, they break in a way where you don't find it during testing, because all the automated tests work.
Yeah.
And then you deploy to prod and it's suddenly, after it gets under some load, it blows up. What changed?
Yeah.
So anyway, I really try and minimize that kind of risk. And as a result, I write very boring stuff where there's a lot of, write the simplest version of it into the product itself. I'm a big fan of the Akka Framework, which I don't know if you guys have.
I think you told me about it. That's a Java framework, or?
It came up through Java. There's an Akka.NET that's written for C#. But for anyone out there who's writing complex systems where you have lots of multi-threading, or even if you just need to, and it can be multi-threading on a single box, or it can be multi-threading across like a whole server farm. That Akka model, the actor model, is a really good way to handle concurrency. And it's not the way that most .NET folks do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, can you explain kind of the difference in its methodology versus something else?
Yeah, it's so instead of, basically, Akka allows you to write multi-threaded code in a way where you don't have to lock anything. And for folks who aren't programmers, when you lock stuff, like if you have multiple threads who are trying to access the same piece of memory at the same time, if they both change memory, or one piece of code writes something to that piece of memory and then it reads it back, but another piece of code has changed that block of memory in the meantime, it causes major problems. And that's how you get bad crashes and security vulnerabilities. So the way you get around that is locking, but locking creates a whole host of other problems. And so Akka is a way where it uses functional programming principles to use non-data that doesn't change, immutable state data. And it basically forces you to write a big system. Instead of writing it like one big piece of code, it's like it's 20, 50,
almost.
Right, many pieces of code, like mini programs. And then each part of your system talks to the rest of the system only through message passing. And all of that's that means a lot more to the programmers out there than the average folks. But the benefit that gives you is it just allows you to make, it's a much safer way to structure highly concurrent systems where you got a bunch of different things you're doing at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. What have you used any AI coding tools or anything yet? Or are you keeping that up? What are your kind of favorites, or which ones have you been playing with, and what's your impressions on them?
So I don't wind up using AI coding the way I think a lot of folks do. I almost use AI. I use Grok almost exclusively. I've tried Claude, and I wind up going back to Grok, and I kind of did the Pepsi challenge thing where I was like, hey, write a piece of, go to four different AIs and say, write a piece of code that does this, and compare the results back. But I actually don't use AI to really write code so much as with PetroBricks, it connects to a bunch of stuff that I'm not familiar with, and I might have to deal with a new encryption standard or a new, like with Spark. It was actually really helpful with Sparkplug B when I was first getting into Sparkplug B, because I could go and I could, have it ingest the entire Sparkplug B specification and then ask questions. So it's fantastic for stuff like that. So I will usually do something where I'm trying to learn something or answer a question about something that I'm not familiar with, and I'll show it the resources to go pull in, and then I'll kind of have a conversation, and then I'll ask it to write sample code, and then I'll tell it, well, here's where that's a problem. And it's almost like it allows me to have a conversation with a knowledgeable colleague.
Yeah. No, that's exactly, people don't, in my opinion,
Pair programming in a way or whatever.
They don't think of it as like a partner in it. A lot of the, like, okay, yeah, it's a partner because it can write the code, but like, let's take a step back and like, help me think through all of the different things that I'm not thinking about, or if it's a new package or a new service.
Or I just get this asinine long like error message and like, can you just
tell me
just distill this down what the heck's going on? Like,
oh, it's fantastic for that. You can just drop an error message in there and it tells you, oh yeah, this is what it's talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really? I didn't get that when I first read that error.
Yeah.
No, it's great for that.
Well, these are the conversations we like having here too, because it's, I think we were saying it before we came on, but it's like, it's good to know what's in your stack, but at the same time, like PetroBricks could or should be part of a lot of our listeners' stack too, where they don't even have to know. They don't even have to know it's the Akka Framework, and maybe in 5 years something better comes around and you rip it out, but they'll be none the wiser, right? And that's the whole point. Like,
yeah, no one wants to know about Akka who's using PetroBricks. There's like 5 programmers out there who are like, oh yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, Josh Groves will be like,
I was going to say, they're probably listening. So hopefully. Well, so given that, what is in your stack on for PetroBricks? What are y'all running on? You have any cloud? I guess you said you're mostly on
is it containerized in that way, but so that you can run it, say, edge here, there, everywhere kind of thing?
Yeah. So the idea is to make it as simple as possible. The app itself is a running instance of PetroBricks we call a PetroBricks node. And so you've got like the core kind of data switch, which is the node. And then you've got a web configurator, which you use to create all your data pipelines. But the interesting thing is the way that it's structured is you're essentially creating a big config file. And the idea is that a PetroBricks node could be deployed headless to a piece of equipment out in the field. So anyway, you've got your PetroBricks node, you've got your configurator, and all of that stuff is wrapped up in a single Docker container that you can basically run anywhere you run Docker.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Which is Linux or whatever.
Yeah. Windows, Linux, anywhere. Yeah. Interestingly enough, I thought I'd run into more Windows. Everybody is doing Linux.
Yeah. Especially
they are and they aren't. It's like,
for Docker.
Oh yeah. I mean, no, I think running Docker in production, I don't even know if Windows is like, I think you can run.
I have Docker desktop, Bobby. What do you mean?
Define production. Well, it's
production. It's on a laptop in the closet.
JD Long we had on, like, he's got a tweet or something about it. It was like, asking about production and then, Excel spreadsheets. And he's like, well, by that definition, all your Excel spreadsheets in the company are in production. Like production's a bullshit, excuse for that. Probably the fact that they're making multi-million or billion-dollar decisions off of whatever Excel spreadsheet someone's got. But
no, it happens in every industry every day. It's crazy.
But I think there's also a lot of IT folks in oil and gas who be like, what's a container? And I'm not touching Linux.
Actually, that's a good for us to I don't know how deep we've ever gotten into containers and all of that stuff before, but I think it's probably a good thing to just highlight what they are and why they're so useful, because they really are when you compare it to.
I mean, it's kind of almost going back to what like the Java virtual machine was in a way, right? But write once and deploy anywhere kind of thing, right? Like, you can write your code. It's almost like what a VM is, but you don't need to partition the hard drive for it and everything, right? It just.
The best description I've ever been given is it's a recipe for the computer as to exactly how to set up the environment when you start, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's pre-configured. You don't have to go and install packages manually. The environment, the operating system, everything is structured and ready to go.
I guess it solves the whole, it worked on my computer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or send you the local host link to share with you.
Yeah, I always tell folks it's, you'll start with something that they maybe have heard of, a virtual machine. Mm-hmm. And then you say, it's basically a virtual machine, but it's actually not a virtual machine.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But, functionally, for all intents and purposes, functionally, it's like a virtual machine.
Yeah, just better.
Just better. Exactly.
But again, because you can take it and deploy it to an edge device, or, all major cloud providers have, container Kubernetes services that you can just send the container there, or again, you can run it.
I was gonna say, even just the deployment of it, right? Like I can go into Azure and drop in a GitHub link and deploy
when you got a Docker file or whatever else,
yeah.
and they just, again, like you said, it's got a recipe and it just works.
It just works.
As a software developer, the big advantage from my perspective is you have control of the environment. You have a consistent environment. You can avoid. You ever heard of DLL hell?
Yeah.
So you're installing software on, bare metal, and you've got 5 different pieces of software, and you got one of them that decides to change some DLL that everybody else is using. None of that happens in a container because you have it's just its own self-contained environment in a container, and you know exactly what the environment's going to look like, what DLLs you're going to have, and so it's a much more stable way to deploy software.
Yeah, no, and it's just it's so much easier than the traditional ways too. But I do think, like when I was at HiveCell and I was talking to a lot of OT folks, I do think in the SCADA industrial manufacturing world, VMs have been the standard for decades. And so even whenever that was 3-4 years ago, it was like, what's a container? Like, oh man, this is gonna be a long conversation.
Run a container on a VM.
Yeah. Well, no, and like that's like most of the pilots that we did ended up being that. It's like, oh well, we've already got a VM, so we'll just put it in there. And I'm like, well, you're kind of missing the point. I mean, I guess we can do that, but
one thing that's fantastic about containers for any oil and gas folks out there, I've seen this where there's operators who aren't currently using containers, and I'll talk to those folks, and we have a little conversation around Docker, and it's like, yeah, not only are you going to use this for PetroBricks, but let's say that you want to have an MQTT broker that you're using for a test system. You just pull down a Docker image and you edit your config file and you start that sucker up. You've got it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's so easy to pull down and deploy software. We're like, installing a database and configuring it used to be like an all-day affair.
Yeah.
It's wild. And it's just wild to me how many people still, you've got all this legacy stuff built in VMs. And so they've trying to get out of that, but man, it's worth it. I feel like in the long run. And
for you guys, it sounds like you said like there's Akka.NET. So are you running .NET Core?
Yeah, .NET Core.
Which I think that in of itself has been a huge, in the last 5-10 years, a big, not even 10 years, like probably the last 5, 6, 7 years or so.
Yeah, Microsoft, I didn't know what to think when they first were changing .NET, and they're gonna port it out so that it runs anywhere, but specifically on Linux.
Yeah.
Because really it wasn't about running anywhere. It was just about running on Linux because that's what everyone's using for
that
enterprise.
Was anywhere, right?
Yeah, that's everywhere. They've done a really good job.
Yeah,
it's a great way. And as a developer, I did Windows deployments, and was basically building Windows software for most of my career, and I really didn't notice a significant difference when switching over and running on Linux and building to Linux. It's basically a build option at this point.
No, it is really cool. And then, I think it must be similar to things going on under the hood, but we had John Archer on back when he started with, he's here with Red Hat over at the Canon. Are they still there?
I think so. Yeah.
So, but I remember him saying actually that SQL Server actually runs faster on Red Hat than it does on Windows.
I've heard stuff about that. Postgres, you hear that about a lot too. And apparently the Linux file system does things a little differently than, what is it, NTFS on,
that sounds right, yeah,
on Windows. And it just works better for databases.
Yeah. But it's just funny because, you'd think Microsoft, but again, Windows is usually so much more bloated than a Linux distribution too. There's a lot going on there too.
100%.
So I guess with that, we can get in a little a little speed round.
Speed round, man. That's hour flies by when we're.
I mean, I guess to that point, I'll start with one. Just get them off the top of my head. But like Windows or Linux, what do you prefer?
For a desktop, I do still prefer
Or Apple. I guess we can do Apple if we're going to talk about desktop too. But
desktop. I would say Windows. I use Windows, and it's probably something more like that's what I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
More than it's superior. It's just I know how to do stuff, so I keep using it.
Yeah. I mean, I some of it may be familiarity, but like I've tried to use Apple and like navigating the folders and stuff on there. It's like, why is this so obtuse? Or it should be pretty similar.
It's just such a different experience if you're doing it as part of your day-to-day like business. Like if you just have normal shit that you're trying to do and you've been on Windows for your entire life, it's very easy to stay on Windows, even with development. It's like, you've got some funky stuff with WSL that you got to deal with and all that. But it's just like, if I'm not coding, then it's infinitely more productive for me to use Windows than it is Apple.
Well, especially in oil and gas, where I need the Office suite and everone uses Outlook. And all these things.
That's the other thing. It's
and
just all the
Spotfire,
tools.
different things, like they all run on Windows.
So you are making me think of something though. Have you, I do use Windows, and I agree with all the reasons stated here, but have you ever been in the situation where you got a meeting and Windows forces a reboot, and then it's 10 freaking minutes to apply whatever the Windows update is? Do you ever think about using Linux as a desktop in those moments?
For sure, yeah. But I got myself out of that real quick because actually the XPS laptop I bought from Dell as a Linux laptop because I thought it was going to be cool. And I was going to do some consulting work on that back in 2019. And then I was like, oh.
How long did the Linux instance last before you repurchased?
Like a couple weeks. I was like, I need Spotfire, and I don't want to. Again, I don't want to create a Windows VM because like now I can only allocate half the resources to it or whatever else. But I mean, I think with that, Windows subsystem for Linux has come a long way too. I mean, like it was janky early, probably 5, 6, 7 years, but like it's pretty damn good now.
Yeah. WSL too.
Yeah, I haven't run into nearly as many issues in the last couple of years as I.
Which again, I think that was enabled by containerization too. I think doesn't it need Docker technically running underneath the hood?
That would make sense
for it to work. I think
spin up virtual. I mean, spinning up all that stuff.
Yeah,
makes it a lot easier, right?
I think you're right, and but even with that, they made some massive improvements with WSL2. Like I noticed a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of true developers like to use that. I mean, because it used to be you had to have basically almost a Mac, if you want to do any Unix-based development. It was just kind of like, we have to use this because then I can port this over to a Linux server more easily, but now it's not the case. So
yeah, it's BSD under the covers. So yeah.
But like you're saying, I mean, I think across the board, Microsoft has done a fantastic job of leaning into Linux. And again, I think when they bought GitHub, they were also the largest contributor on GitHub. And like, people always thought they are very enterprisey, and probably the whole embrace, extend, extinguish thing still lives on a little bit, but they were the largest contributor to open source as well. So
yeah, I feel like if you just give Microsoft enough time, they'll eventually get it right. Kind of like with Power BI, like it sucks so bad when it first came out.
Except for Fabric, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I've been waiting for Synapse, and
they'll just change
Azure Data Warehouse. Well, they did.
Every time they change the name, they get a 2-year reset window period, right?
They do have some really smart people working on the. They brought in some people. I think a couple of guys from MotherDuck, but that were also BigQuery folks and everything. They brought them in on the Fabric team. Yeah. So to your point, I mean, give it 2 or 3 years and that could be really interesting.
Who knows? Right. But yeah, normally I don't like to mess with their stuff early on because it's just like, I know it's not going to be great.
Yeah.
But what's your go-to if I'm coming to, are you in Denver or are you some like outside Denver? Are you in Boulder or anywhere? Or are you actually in Denver?
A little bit outside Denver,
okay.
Closer to Golden.
Okay. So what's your go-to recommendation if I'm coming into town for a day? What should I go do?
You should call me.
I will. I haven't been to Denver in long enough.
You should call me, and then I would highly recommend you go walk along Clear Creek. Go to Golden, walk along Clear Creek. They've got this amazing path that they're building where it goes like miles up into the canyon for riding bikes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And walking and all that, and you can walk all the way back down into Golden, and you go to the Mountain Toad for a beer.
That's cool.
Sounds like a good day.
It sure does.
What's your favorite vacation destination?
I think the Black Hills. I really like the Black Hills these days.
Yeah.
What's your go-to LLM today? I know this obviously changes, but which one, if you've got a problem that you're going to let an LLM solve, are you going to go to first?
It's got to be Grok.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're the best.
Grok with a K or with a Q?
With a K. What's Grok with a Q?
It's their enterprise version. So
wow.
They've got, but it's, Grok with a K was built on Twitter, but the tech and the infrastructure that Grok with a K runs on, I believe, is Grok with a Q. And so it's just incredibly, like, if you want an API key and you want to do dev and stuff with it, they've got all these open source models that they host on their whatever TPU servers or whatever ridiculous servers they've got. And it is insane how fast it is. I did a test 9 months ago, just comparing like time to first token, tokens per second, and just overall completion time of like Azure, OpenAI, Gemini, Claude, and Grok just murdered. I mean, like 10 times faster for time to first response and tokens per second.
I might have to check that out. So I'm definitely, by the way, I'm also not the guy to take any kind of opinion from on AI. But yeah, like we talked about, I do use it, and I keep going back to Grok, but my sampling size is very small.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, everyone uses it differently.
So I'm not sure how often you come to Houston, but is there anywhere when you come to Houston, like I need to go there, like that, as far as restaurants or destinations or anything?
I keep saying I need to get barbecue, and I never have.
Oh,
man. Every time I've been here, I never wind up going to get barbecue, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen this time either.
What about either favorite book or a book you would recommend to someone either trying to get into tech/software or energy?
I don't know. For someone looking to get into tech or energy, I don't know what I would recommend. Most of my reading is, so much of my work life is tied up in...
that's totally fair.
Yeah. So when I read stuff, I actually do a lot of reading, and I've gotten into reading like old hardback science fiction novels, and then I do a lot of science reading and stuff like that. But I don't know that I have a good... I've got like, nerdy programmer book recommendations, and I've got, old sci-fi book recommendations.
I mean, I think our audience falls into both of those categories in all honesty.
Give one of each of those.
One of those,
I think will be
at
good.
least, yeah.
So on the sci-fi book recommendation side, I would say Use of Weapons by Ian Banks is a fantastic book. His whole series, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Culture series, but it's a sci-fi series. You might like it. It's about a very distant future where nobody really remembers Earth, and humanity spread out through the universe. And they basically have partnered with sentient AIs. And the AIs really run everything, but it's not like Terminator AI. They're like useful, nice AI, but at the same time, they're kind of jerks. And they act like people, and it's very interesting. And Ian Banks is a smart guy.
That's cool. No, my wife makes fun of me because I don't read any. All I read or I listen to mostly are like either business, entrepreneurship, or like history or biographies. Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't listen to, or I don't read or listen to any fiction.
Yeah,
she's like, "You're so weird." Like, I think it's weird that you listen to made up stories all day. But here nor there. I need to get some friction or some fiction going to let my creativity have some fun a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I think that is the side of it where like you can get locked in,
for
like
sure.
not expand your horizons or think of what's possible.
Yeah.
A little more. So
cool, man. Well, thanks for coming. This has been great.
I'm so glad it worked out.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Where can people find you, get in touch with you if they want to learn more or reach out to you guys for some work?
So Rudy, RUDY at PetroBricks.com. We're, PetroBricks.com on the web. And anyone feel free to, especially if you're an operator, you're looking to solve some of these problems, send me an email, hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to talk.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rudy.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, everybody. We'll see y'all next time.